Hello, my name is Joyce Puretti, and I am the Diversity, Recruitment, and Retention Coordinator for the College of Engineering. At PSU, we are committed to fostering a diverse workforce and providing a safe and comfortable work environment. During this next section, Kelly and I would like to talk about cultural responsiveness and social psychology topics including microaggressions, bias, and stereotype threat. In this section of the module, we hope to empower you in shaping the culture and climate of our college. You may have heard of the phrase cultural responsiveness, but what does it mean? Cultural responsiveness is the ability to learn, understand, and interact effectively and successfully with those of different cultural backgrounds. This also includes interacting and learning from others who have the same cultural background as you. We live in an increasingly complex and globalized world. College campuses in particular are wonderful places where you'll meet folks who vary from you in class, race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, ability, and age, among others. It is incredibly important for you as a student employee to be welcoming and able to work competently, respectfully, and effectively with all students regardless of their group affiliations. Practicing cultural responsiveness helps you develop the skills to interact and work effectively with folks of different worldviews and beliefs. As you can imagine, you don't just suddenly develop cultural responsiveness and move on. It takes work, practice, and is a lifelong commitment. Culture is often reduced to visual and physical things. For example, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, and the holidays you celebrate. However, culture is very much like an iceberg, and beneath the surface exist deeper components. For example, your culture impacts your attitude towards interactions and respect for your elders, the amount of personal space you're comfortable with, and eye contact. Even your approaches to problem solving and decision making are influenced by your culture. Thinking of it this way, it's clear that everyone has culture and its effects are widespread. Even professors and others perceived to hold positions of power have had unique life experiences that have influenced their culture. When engaging in authentic cultural interactions, remember to approach others with empathy, assume positive intentions, treat others with respect, and a respectful curiosity can help you to learn about thoughts and actions that might be unfamiliar and lead you to become more culturally aware. One key aspect of cultural responsiveness involves self-assessment. Ask yourself, what is one thing in your background that you value? For example, your love for playing an instrument or your strong work ethic. Reflect for a moment how your family relationships and traditions, ethnic identity, and religious and cultural upbringing influence those aspects that you value. It's important for you to self-assess and reflect on your interactions with others as you continue to become a more culturally responsive student employee. Culture has deep roots and influences many aspects of our lives, including our preferences and biases. When unchecked, these biases can lead to prejudice and even stereotypes of certain groups. Therefore, it is important that we learn how to recognize bias and overcome it. There are two forms of bias: explicit and implicit. Explicit biases are consciously known to you. For example, your dislike for mushrooms and your love of reggaeton or rock. Implicit biases, however, cannot be directly accessed. These represent your subconscious attitudes or stereotypes that will affect your actions and decisions. These biases are activated involuntarily and without an individual's awareness or control. If you'd like to know more about implicit and explicit biases, we recommend that you watch this short video produced by UCLA's Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. The implicit associations or biases we harbor cause us to have feelings and attitudes about other people based on characteristics such as race, ethnicity, age, and appearance. One way to determine if you have any implicit biases is to take an implicit association test, or IAT. The results of these tests are not collected by MCEX, and I recommend you take one or two of them. When thinking about bias in a college setting, this can manifest itself in a simple example shown here. In this XKCD comic strip, two male students are working on a calculus problem when one says, "Wow, you suck at math." But when the comic is modified and a woman is completing the math problem, the statement is, "Wow, girls suck at math." This type of bias, where there's an automatic assumption that a member of an underrepresented group, in this example, women in math, is bad at a particular task can have significant effects.
In the previous section, we introduced the concept of bias and how one person's individual bias led them to believe that all girls suck at math because one girl couldn't solve a math problem in an educational setting. Claude Steele, a psychologist at UC Berkeley, studied the phenomenon of stereotype threat. This is defined as being at the risk of confirming in one's own mind a negative stereotype about one's group. Take a moment to consider how you would feel if there was a negative stereotype of your group hanging over you. Do you think it might influence how you behave or perform? Do you think that you would spend some time thinking about that when you could be studying for a test or actually taking the test in class? One example of stereotype threat is shown here. In this study, a group of students were told one of two things before taking a math test. In the first scenario, they were told that the math exam had shown that there was no difference in math ability between women and men. Under this condition, the women and men performed equally well. However, when students were told that the exam did produce gender differences in math ability, women underperformed relative to men. This indicates that stereotype threat has very real effects on student performance. Efforts to reduce stereotype threat and improve the climate, especially in STEM fields, may eliminate differences in student performance. In this final section, we'll be discussing microaggressions. Microaggressions are brief, everyday interactions that send derogatory messages to certain individuals because of their group membership. These are called microaggressions because they're quick comments or actions. They can be quite common, and it's important that people recognize when they may have committed a microaggression so that they can correct it. Here is an excerpt of a chart that shows the general themes of some microaggressions, what they look like, and most importantly, what the message is to the person targeted by the statement. You can view the full chart on the resources section of this website. Microaggressions have detrimental effects because they can make people feel that they don't belong and often perpetuate stereotypes. As a student employee, your role is to respect and welcome all students. Therefore, consider using any of these strategies in interrupting microaggressions if you feel comfortable doing so. The purpose of these strategies is not to be argumentative, but rather to have everyone involved obtain a better understanding of the bias and stereotypes that are perpetuated through microaggressions. So how can you eliminate bias, prejudice, and stereotypes at Portland State University? Here are 5 practices that you can use to create a more welcoming and inclusive environment. Increase awareness and understand the problem. Recognize our own cultural influences, preferences, and biases. Individuating instead of generalizing. Recognize that stereotypes of a whole group are inaccurate and see a person as an individual. Make an effort to use inclusive language. Avoid insensitive jokes, misuse of pronouns, and other microaggressions as they can have a deep impact on others. Expand your knowledge. Meaningfully engage with different cultures, people, and resources, such as reading or learning another language. Practice empathy and perspective taking. Adopt the perspective of the member of another group. Recognize how that person may be treated unfairly due to social stereotypes.